We talk a lot here in the Renegade Nation about the overspending and the ridiculous budgets of particularly Disney endeavors, not only in the box office, but also for Disney Plus as well. And the stories, well, they just don't stop coming. And this time, we're finding out that Andor, one of the least watched shows when it comes to Disney, Star Wars, Lucasfilm, well, it had one of the greatest budgets. In fact, exceeding that of, say, Star Wars Rogue One, and came very close to exceeding that of Solo, a Star Wars story. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Renegade Online.
If you thought the Star Wars films were expensive, we were thinking The Acolyte was expensive, and it will be. More Andor news. Andor had a higher budget than Solo, a Star Wars story. Let's read this one. Disney Plus putting on Star Wars, talking about all the history here, bringing in the Mandalorian, all this kind of stuff. The meat and potatoes, and how far downhill Star Wars shows have gone on Disney Plus since the end of Mando Season 2. Talking about some of the complaints. The third season of Mando, bring this up, she's kind of going through a history. The third season of Mando opened with 823 million minutes of viewing, according to Nielsen data, which was some 20% down from the premiere of Season 2. And I want everybody to try to remember, when Mando Season 2 premiered, there were about 20 million or so Disney Plus subscribers. When Mando Season 3 premiered, there were almost 40 million Disney Plus subscribers. And I'm talking about North America. We're talking about where, not globally. Forget Hotstar, forget Europe, forget South America. We're just talking domestic, because that's all Nielsen measures. So we're going apples to apples, how bad it got. With nearly double the available eyeballs to watch this from the time that the second season premiered. Okay, so that's problem number one. She then, of course, talks about Book of Boba Fett, what a disaster that was. Okay, they talked about Ahsoka, The Acolyte, how bad this was with audience scores, but then just setting all this up, getting us to the actual issue of Andor here. Here we go. I love this chart. Obviously, Andor is one of the better performing shows in terms of audience reaction, not viewership, right? Rotten Tomatoes score, pretty decent. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people said it was boring, but a lot of people ultimately liked it. Recent filings revealed that by the time filming for the second season of Andor began, and now she says the second season began filming in November of 22. I didn't realize they had gone in that soon. Disney had already spent $351 million US dollars on Andor by the time, or just before, they started filming Season 2. That's a lot of money.
The return on investment is not there, I'll tell you.
No, but they may have felt like, we have something here. We've already got everything we need. The sets just have to be reassembled. We don't have to design a whole lot of new stuff. Maybe they feel like, hey, we can amortize some of those costs down the line into a second season, which should, in theory, should be significantly cheaper than the first, because you don't have to reinvent all these wheels again, right? So maybe that's the thought process, but I found this $351 million was the gross spend. This is 8% more than the cost of making Rogue One, and a shade less. And sorry, it was Rogue One, not Solo. I got it backwards. A shade less than the $364 million spent on Solo, a Star Wars story.
This gives you some idea of why they're doing a Season 2, but no more. Remember, originally they wanted to do like 5 or 6 seasons. So dropping this to 2 means, okay, we'll get a second season out of this. We can drop the average cost per episode. That'll look good for us. We'll try to get some kind of recovery, but we're not doing any of the other seasons because it's too risky. So They may have tried to find a sweet spot here, but and try to save face. But this is just This is atrociously bad from an investment standpoint. And Disney is atrociously bad on a number of fronts within the last 3 or 4 years. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yep. And the spending on Andor is shown in the filings for, and this is one of the rare times, like Caroline doesn't always divulge the names of the companies, but she did here, E&E Industries, which I forget what it stands for. It's connected to Andor. I forget. It's like Pym Productions 3, Pym Productions 2, Pym Productions 1. That was Ant-Man 3, 2, and 1, respectively. But E&E Industries, which produced the show, founded in October 2018 to work on Obi-Wan Kenobi, which was planned at the time to be a feature film shot in Pinewood. Disney had a rethink following the failure of Solo, which lost more than $90 million at the box office as a result of this. And of course, again, to be clear, Caroline knows it's way more than $90 million. Caroline does not include marketing costs, and she always stipulates that. People asking me, it's like, well, she's way off. I thought you said it was $200 million. It was over $200 million for Solo. They lost a ton. But Caroline only looks at the factual information that she can verify, meaning the actual financial returns that only show production costs, no marketing. That's how Caroline does her numbers. She's very strict with it, and I respect and appreciate the way she does it, because we can talk about real numbers on the production side versus what we know pretty closely what they would have gotten back from theatrical. And then we can make very reasonable, educated guesses about what the marketing campaign was. At least $100 million or $150 million for a movie like that. Might have been more for Solo. So yes. So they lost $90 million on production for Solo, lost at least another 100, maybe $150 million on the marketing, for a combined of 2 to 250, right? That's where we come up with those numbers. But Disney had a rethink following Solo. And as a result of this, and I didn't know this until this article, I must have missed this in the first one, the Obi-Wan Kenobi production entity that was originally an FPC, a film production company, became a Disney Plus streaming series, and filming was due to begin in summer of 2020. It was not to be. Production was put on hold for obvious reasons. Disney became concerned the storyline was too similar to Mando, as it involved Kenobi protecting a young Luke Skywalker, famously played by Mark Hamill. The delay proved to be a blessing in disguise, as the pandemic soon sent the world into the lockdown, given time for the Obi-Wan Kenobi script to be reworked. And by May of 21, the crew had gathered in Los Angeles and filming had finally begun. So we moved from a lot of the British production. They moved it back to LA, where they did a lot of Obi-Wan, and Andor basically took the slot that they had booked at Pinewood. That's why it was there. So I didn't catch that fact before now, but just as an interesting tidbit, that's because Disney had already booked it. It's like, what are we going to do? We booked this, and if we don't use Pinewood, we're going to be out whatever they spent to lease the space for 6 months, probably $20 million. At least, I would imagine. I mean, those are not cheap to rent for that long period of time. You're renting those big sound stages because of what they can do. And it's not like another production can just move on in if you cancel on a Monday. It just doesn't work like that. So Disney wanted to use it for something, and they threw Andor in it, apparently. The filing for E&E Industries revealed that a total of $7.2 million had been spent by October 31st of 19, not long before pre-production on Obi-Wan was halted. It is likely that more was spent on the show in the intervening time, but the bulk of the cost should show on the October 31 filings. E&E Industries wasn't mothballed when Obi-Wan was put on hold. Instead, it became the production company for Andor, which was also shot at Pinewood and on location across the UK. So, there you have it. But it just goes to show you the kind of money that Disney had become accustomed to spending on these productions and how ridiculous they were. Because
Star Wars was supposed to be just like with the Joker, right? The Joker's so big, such a popular character. You can invest huge in it. You can take these huge chances. Won't matter. Same thing with Star Wars. The iconography, the power of the franchise, the power of the brand cannot be defeated. Therefore, we'll throw $300, $400, $500 million at every single thing we do with it, and fans will yuck it up no matter what, because they just yuck, yuck, yuck. They love it. They love it so much. They can't stop.
Right.
Oh, wait, they did.
Yep. And there you go. There's the film tax credit that came in for Andor of around $70 million US. So you took 350 or so, 350 to 360, whatever it was. You subtract 70 million from that. That was some of the cost recovery. But again, Disney still spent in excess so far, because assuming that they're using the same entity to continue to film the next season of Andor, which they're working on now, I suppose. I don't know when season 2 is set to debut. I think maybe next year, but there you have it. Interesting little pieces of information there. Andor and Loki season 2, just to give you an idea. And these things they're spending a lot more money on these than a lot of things that Netflix makes. 90+% of what Netflix makes. And that same 90% plus at Netflix is turning in numbers that are, in many cases, significantly bigger than any of these shows on Disney Plus. And you wonder how Netflix is turning in 25+% profit margins. You realize that we might be talking about Netflix's earnings call in a couple of weeks. And I think that barrier may be broken. I predicted this after the last earnings call, that we are within one fiscal year, and it might happen this quarter. We are within one fiscal year of Netflix probably turning in more profit, like dollars, more profit to shareholders than the Walt Disney Company on roughly between 1/3 and 1/2 the revenue that Disney does.
It really says something about the mismanagement of the brands that Disney holds. It really, really does.
Yeah, we are on that precipice, kids, and we may find out how close we are. Very
We
soon.
make this stuff up. We're in the fringe. We don't know what we're talking about.
I'm totally making this stuff up. All of it's made up.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.